So good morning. It's great to have missionaries visiting us, and it's also pleasant to see so many of you out on such a potentially treacherous morning. So a little bit more of an intro on our speakers today. In your bulletin, there is a very nice flyer that has pretty much everything I know about them on here. So anything I say is going to be on here with a couple exceptions. So they're obviously missionaries to the Philippines. They work at a sort of a boarding house or school working with missionary kids. So the children of the missionaries who are there and potentially out some more. And it seems like also just some other people working in the area that the school ministers to them. But for us, as Pastor noted, they are in the Asia region, which is one of the continents we currently do not have missionaries serving on. And so at some point in the future, Lord willing, perhaps them or we'll find somebody else over there, but that is one of the continents where we would like to get a missionary that we support there. Along those lines, they are like some other missionaries who pass through here. We're going to talk about the potential of a short-term missions trip to the Philippines with them, and if that comes together, you'll find out some more. Looks like a lot of our missions trips, and even the one to South America, is still a possibility. Just this past week, the pastor from Haiti said, let's start talking about next year, because he wanted to talk about a trip, and I said, not this year. So a lot of that stuff, we'll see how it comes together and how the Lord blesses, but they would be a missionary family that we would have potentially in Asia and perhaps someplace to go short term. Now, Pastor mentioned some people, and I have no idea who they are. I've only been here 12 or 13 years or something, so I don't think were missionaries when we even came. So that's looking back a long time. But I'm not quite sure how old Jen is, but if you look back sometime when put her around the size of her young son who's here, when she was around 2, I think, there was a couple that took a missions trip to the Philippines and met the Davises and held this little girl and carried her around and didn't realize any connection until a little bit ago when we were talking about coming to have them speak here. And that couple, of course, was Gary and Lois Taylor. So there's a very interesting, unique connection there. And obviously not saying that Lois was old enough to go on a missions trip and hold Jen and look at how old she is now, but, Pastor's obviously old, not Lois. So without any much more ado, I'd like to introduce Jay Wolf, and he'll introduce Jen and the rest of his family as needed. But we look forward to hearing more about what they're doing, and then he's also going to talk to us from the Word. So thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. It is a good morning, isn't it? My name is Jay Wolf. As I've met several of you, it's such a delight to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here. My wife, Jen, sitting over there, she'll come up in just a little bit as we share about our ministry and what we have been doing overseas. But first, I just wanted to get into the Word and just talk about how God has led us there and some of the scriptures in the Old Testament that spoke to us during that time when we were seeking the Lord and praying for His guidance. So we just got back from the Philippines at Faith Academy, serving there for 3 years, our first term. We got back in June. So we went there from 2011 to 2014, serving there at Faith Academy, which is a boarding program. And as Pastor said, Bill Simons was one of the person there that had started the school. His goal was to educate the children of missionaries, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. And actually, one of the boarding homes on the campus is named after him. It's the William Simons dorm. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. But just wanted to read from God's Word. If you have your Bibles with you can open up to Joshua That's right. Thought of you. We're reading from chapter 3, but let's just open up in prayer first. Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you, we praise you. Lord, all this is yours. Lord, we thank you for this church, these people that have come here to worship you, to know you more, to know you deeper. Lord, thank you for the safety in traveling. Those who came here, Lord, we lift those up who are at their homes that couldn't make it. Lord, we just ask that you just speak to us. Speak through me. May your message be clear. Lord, we give this all to you. It's in your name. It's in your glory. It's for all your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. So Joshua, chapter 3, I just want to set the stage a little bit before we dive in. Prior to this, God had spoken to Moses, and God wanted the people, his people, the Israelites, freed from slavery. So Moses moves the Israelites out of Egypt, and they come to a big obstacle called the Red Sea. And God miraculously divides the Red Sea, and they cross on dry ground. Then they're wandering around in the desert for 40 years, and a lot of trust of the Israelites were put into Moses and his leadership. And now we come to the point where Moses has died, and Joshua has taken over leadership. And they're big shoes to fill. They're big shoes to fill, and as you read Joshua, as you study it, you will see that God continually reminds Joshua to be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. So let's look at Joshua chapter 3. Let's start with verse 3. God is speaking to Joshua, and he says, giving orders to the people, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the priests who are Levites carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. And then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. So God gives Joshua clear instructions. He asks the priests to move out who are carrying this Ark of the Covenant. They're going to go first. And then he's to tell the Israelites to go and follow that. They don't know which way to go, but if they keep their eyes and they keep the direction that the Ark of the Covenant is going, that's where God will lead them. Lead them to the promised land. Let's go down to verse 11. See, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. And as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot into the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. In the same way that the Ark of the Covenant was ahead of the Israelites, God is always ahead of us. He's leading us. He's speaking softly into our hearts, and he's saying, follow me. When Jen and I were seeking and praying to Lord as we wanted to do something, to go somewhere overseas, we had a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know where God wanted us to be. We had a lot of unanswered questions. We thought more seriously of uprooting our family, leaving our home, and serving overseas. But God used these passages to remind us of his promise that he is always with us. In this account of Joshua, the ark represents God. We're to follow God, follow the ark. Keep our eyes on God, keep our eyes on the ark. The Bible tells us, see, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. If we keep our eyes on him and follow him, we believe he will do the rest. But be aware, there are consequences when we take our eyes off of God, or let ourselves get distracted, or become fearful, or feel that we can do things all on our own. Remember Peter? Let's look at Matthew chapter 14 really quick here. Just set the stage here. Peter and the disciples are in a boat. And Jesus had just fed the 5,000. He's gone off to pray after that miracle. And so they're waiting in the boat for Jesus to be done praying. Then suddenly they see this figure walking on water. They don't know what it is. Some of them said it was a ghost coming, but as Jesus got closer, he said, "It is I." Peter asked, "Well, if it is you, Lord, command me to come out onto the water with you." So let's go down to verse 29. It says, "Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and forward to Jesus." So exciting for Peter. What an experience. He obeyed Jesus. His eyes, heart, and mind were focused on him. What happens next? When Peter saw the wind, he was afraid, and he began to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." Peter got distracted. He took his eyes off of Jesus. He began to be more concerned of what was going on around him. So just like Peter, the Israelites had to trust in God. They had to trust in Joshua's leading. And as God revealed this to us, as we were seeking him, he began to stretch our faith. Let's go back to Joshua chapter 3. Let's go down to verse 14. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is at flood stage all during the harvest. Yet as soon as the priest who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing, just as God had promised, just as God said to Joshua he would do, and he did. Down to verse 17. The priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. Firm ground. Stand firm, walking on dry ground that the Lord provided. You see, the priests had to step into the water. This is what the Lord commanded. It may not have made sense at that time, but they had to trust God was going to follow through on his promises. There will be times in our lives where trusting God does not make any sense in our human minds. But that is what faith is all about. Now, this is no lightly flowing river. The Jordan River at this time, the Bible tells us, was at flood stage. So the water was deep. The water was raging. It was very loud. And sometimes God expects us to wait for him to show us where to go and when. And sometimes God asks us to stand in a raging river that is way over our heads. We may question him, and we may doubt him, and we might be thinking, there's no way this is going to work. It may not be easy, but we have to be obedient. And when we feel God moving, as we seek him, as we go to him in prayer, he asks us to take a step of faith. In Joshua, the water was not going to stop until after the priests put their feet in it. When we obey, when we put our feet into the river, that's when we see God work. He will follow through on his promises, and in that point, when you look back, you see God was with you the whole time. And what didn't make sense then now makes perfect sense. Are there areas in your life where God is asking you to step into the water? Or maybe you have stepped out and need to trust him to carry you through. He will carry you. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 reminds us that faith is the assurance of things hoped for. It's the convictions of things not seen. Now I'm going to call Jen up as we share about our ministry and share how God stretched our faith and the river that he asked us to put our feet into. So this is our family here. This photograph was taken on Faith Academy campus just a few months before we left. And so our oldest one is Josiah. He's 9 years old, just turned 9 earlier this month, and he's in 3rd grade. Juliana, she is 6 years old, and she's in 1st grade. And Jeremiah, our youngest, will be turning 1 tomorrow.
So I just want to share with you a little bit about my background. I was born in Manila, Philippines, to missionary parents. As Pastor said earlier, Jim and Linda Davis were my parents. They served in the Philippines for 34 years. And at a young age, I accepted Jesus as my Savior. I attended Faith Academy and in the Philippines through most of my school years. This is where I grew in my faith, through the dedicated teachers there and the classes and just special times with the Lord. I learned a lot about God, and I was very open to missions around the world. I had many opportunities myself to be involved in ministry, different mission trips, and I saw firsthand God using missionaries throughout Asia to reach the people. At a fairly young age, I felt that God was calling me to be a missionary. Then when I graduated from Faith Academy, I moved back to the U.S. and went to Messiah College, got a degree in elementary education. And after that time, I just wasn't sure how God was going to use me. I still felt like God was going to use me somehow, but I didn't know if it would be overseas or what that was going to look like. There were still a lot of unanswered questions in my mind.
For me, my growing up was quite a bit different than Jen's. I grew up in a Christian home with loving parents. I grew up in Rhode Island, but for me, missions was not on my radar. And for me, knowing about missions and learning about it was not there. I didn't learn much about it in school. I didn't hear much about it in our church that I grew up in, and it just wasn't talked much about in my family. So growing up, going through high school, I just knew very little about missions. I met Jen in college, and she was the first missionary kid that I had met. So I was intrigued with her story. I asked a lot of questions. I enjoyed hearing what she had to say about growing up overseas and what it was like. Her brother also went to Messiah College. He's in the same grade. And a lot of her friends were missionary kids from around the world, international students she was friends with that came to Messiah College to study abroad. And so I was in this circle of friends of missionary kids and international students, and I was the only one that had no experience with either. But it was the start of God working in my heart, becoming interested and hearing more about it. And so through those years, God was working. So we got married in 2002 at First Baptist in Doylestown, which is our home church. And soon after we got married, we joined the global missions team of our church, and we served there for a number of years. And for me, that was a wonderful experience. Again, it was just another step, another event that God had placed in my life as missionaries would come back on their furlough or home assignment and would tell their stories at these meetings. And I would hear how God was working through them, how God was working through their ministry, and all these different kind of things. And I started to get a little excited. And then in 2009, I went on my first mission trip to Costa Rica with the Doylestown team. And so Jen stayed home with Josiah and Juliana, who were just little at the time, but God spoke to me on that mission trip. We did all kinds of things of evangelizing it to teenagers and building a school, but God was speaking to me saying, I want you to step into the river. I want you to step out.
So when Jay came home from this trip and we had time to talk about it, I was really excited to see that God had been working in his heart. I felt like all along that it was something that God was going to do, and it wasn't my job to encourage him to go to the field. So we talked about what is it that God wants us to do, and we felt like he brought the idea of boarding home parents to our mind. And he asked us to step into the water, to take that next step, even though we didn't know what it was going to look like, and seek out what we should do first. So we first contacted World Venture.
Next slide, please.
World Venture is a mission agency that my parents actually were with, and we just kind of wanted to go with somebody that we were familiar with at first. And they have been sending missionaries for 70 years and over 700 missionaries around the world. And they encouraged us to look at some different boarding homes and international schools. But at the time, Faith Academy was really in an urgent need for boarding home parents for that next school year. So in about January of 2011, we started the whole process, and by July of 2011, we were in the Philippines for our first year. And we spent 3 years there, as Jay mentioned earlier. Then this past summer, World Venture has appointed us for long-term service, for career service. We initially just went kind of to test it out and see if it was a good fit for our family, and we have loved it there and really excited that the mission is behind us, and we are looking to go back.
Next slide. This is the Philippines. It's made up of over 7,100 islands. About 2,000 of those islands are inhabited. There are over 22 million people in the greater Metro Manila area. You can see the star there in the northern part of the country. That's where Faith Academy is located, just outside of Manila. And a lot of that population, that 22 million, that's a lot coming into work. It's Filipinos coming into the city for work. So the roads were just not made for that amount of volume of vehicles and people. So it's very congested there during a typical work day. And there are still 30 unreached people groups in the Philippines. And a lot of that is in the southern region of the Philippines, of the Mindanao Island. There's a lot of unreached people group there. But the Philippines is a central location to reach the surrounding Asian countries. Next slide. So Faith Academy started in 1957 to educate the children of missionaries. That photo in the upper corner is probably taken in the early 60s, and you can see what it kind of looked there in the surrounding area and how just had a few buildings. And then the bottom picture is what it looks like today. You can see God's faithful hand, his blessings upon the school as it has expanded, added new buildings, and more students. This current school year, the 2014-15 school year, there are 525 enrolled students. It is an international school, so there are students from all over the world. Next slide.
There are about 20 nationalities represented at Faith Academy. You can see the flags at the top. Those are students standing up there holding the flags. They don't do this every day. I don't know if you can tell it's students. Yeah, I guess you can. About every 4 years, we take an all-school picture. And also the staff are all missionaries, and they come from different countries from around the globe as well, from Europe and Africa, Asia, and North America. And the vision of Faith Academy is equipping students to be Christ-like lifelong learners. Next slide. And in order to live out this vision, Faith Academy has many opportunities for students to be involved in outreach to the community, also ministry opportunities on campus, and the dedicated staff, as I mentioned, who are missionaries, all spend a lot of time investing in the lives of the children in and out of the classroom. The students are involved in chapel every week and Bible classes, and biblical integration is a part of all of the classes at Faith Academy.
Next slide. Of the 525 students that are enrolled, about 50 of them are in the boarding program, and that ranges anywhere from middle to high school students. They are mostly missionary kids, and there are a few business kids that are mixed in. But the photo that you see, the smaller photo, that's a picture of the home that we were in these last 3 years, and we had all girls in our home. So the bigger photo there is a picture of our third year of the girls in our home. We had 7 seniors that year, and we had 7 nationalities represented in our home. Next slide. Boarding homes are set up as a family-style home, so the living room and the dining room are one big room. We have our meals together. As you can see, this photo, it was taken during the morning, so the girls, the students, are having their breakfast. And then on the far table, you can see that lunch is put out. Each day is different with the lunches, depending on the menu, but they can go and make their own lunches. They can make sandwiches or take something with them up to school that they can have during their lunch break. Upstairs is the students' room. There's about 5 bedrooms. And then downstairs, there is a large basement, which the students use for doing their studies, doing projects, homework. We also have our family meetings down there, as well as our family devotions. But some of the roles that we have as boarding parents that are in our home are such things as a driver, a mentor, a nurse. We do the shopping, discipleship, listener, disciplinarian, which always isn't easy, guide, tutor, mediator. We teach responsibility. And we want them to be prepared for college in their passport country.
Next slide. As Jay mentioned, we have family devotions. This is a picture of the basement room with a large seating area. And once a week, we have the opportunity to just spend some time in the Word and in prayer with our girls, in addition to all the little bits of time throughout the week as well. But this is really a focused time to just come together and worship God. Sometimes the girls will sing songs with their guitar, and that's a really special time. Sometimes Jay leads the devotional time, sometimes I do, and then at other times we ask the girls if they'd like to share what God's been teaching them in their personal devotions or just in their daily life. Most of the students at Faith Academy and in the boarding home are seeking a personal relationship with Christ, and it's really special. We learn a lot from them as well as we're able to share with them, but it's exciting to see how God is working in their lives as they struggle with the same things that we struggle with here in America. So last year I had the opportunity to share with the girls about inner beauty, and we talked about what does God see as beautiful and what does the world see. And as I said, even as teenagers growing up in Asia, they struggle with the same insecurities and the same feelings that teenagers and women of all ages deal with here in America. We focused on Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And it was really special to have those conversations with the girls and let them share their struggles and learn from each other, as well as for me to share the things that I've gone through in my life as well. So next slide. We'd like to introduce you to a couple families that send their girls to Faith Academy and we're in our home. This first one is the Varberg family. Paul, the father, was a missionary kid himself and attended Faith Academy as a student. They live in Tacloban, which is in the central region of the Philippines that was hit very hard in 2013 by Typhoon Haiyan. You might have heard about in the news just over a year ago. But they've been serving there for many years. They speak the local language of that part of the Philippines. So they are working on translating the Bible into the Waday language. They are church planters, so they have a church that they have started there. And they also have a small international Christian school that they are running with the Philippine curriculum. And it's just really exciting to partner with this family. Vicky, and the blonde in the front, was in our home last year, and this year she is a senior at Faith Academy. So we partner with the parents, especially with the missionary parents. We partner with them so that they can be confident that their daughters are getting a good education and that they're being taken care of while they're away from them.
Next slide. One more family to introduce to you. This is the Song family. They are a Korean family, and they are serving in a closed country in Asia, and they have been for 15 years. Their girls have grown up there. They speak the language, just still studying the language, but fairly fluent. And their ministry is really cool because they get to form a bond, a relationship with these people that they're serving to. And then they share the gospel of Jesus Christ to them. So one of our goals as boarding home parents is to communicate to these parents who have it in best interest to have their child or children get a good education. And so we want to communicate to them by email, by sending them photographs of their child or children and accomplishments that they have done through schoolwork or through sports or if they're involved in a play. And we want to keep them informed of what's been going on throughout the school year. And it's also one of our goals to learn their culture so that we can better connect to their child or to their children or to the students at Faith Academy. Next slide.
So we just wanted to say thank you so much for letting us be here this morning and to share with you what God has been doing in our lives and in the ministry at Faith Academy. 3 John 1:5 says, "Dear friend, when you extend hospitality to Christian brothers and sisters, even when they are strangers, you make the faith visible." And we just thank you for doing that this morning. Next slide.
Just some prayer requests for us. First prayer request is that our financial needs have increased because we have transitioned with World Venture to long-term status to go back at Faith Academy as boarding home parents. So we are in financial need, so we need prayer for partners to come alongside us and partner with us in our ministry and prayer partners as well. Pray for our 2 older kids, Josiah and Juliana, as they have been in a public school in Quakertown, and they really enjoy it. They had a great first semester. They made new friends and enjoy their teacher and their classes. And Lord willing, as we go back to Faith Academy, it's going to be another transition for them. They're going to have to say goodbye to their friends that they just seem to have made and bye to their classrooms. And so just pray for them as they transition once more. And please also uplift the Faith Academy staff. As Jen had said, the Faith Academy staff are all missionaries. So they are there for a number of years, usually 3 to 4 years, and then there's a group of them that go back to their passport country for furlough and home assignment. And so that leaves a gap and empty classrooms until other teachers can come back. If they're heading back and trying to raise support, just pray that they get the financial needs so that the classes can be fulfilled for the students there. Next slide.
These are the faces of the 33 girls. In case you're wondering, over the last 3 years, there were 33 girls that were in and out of our home. And we were part of molding them and just being able to disciple them in their relationship with Christ. And so we ask that you pray with us, that they would find their identity in Christ and their freedom in Him alone. Thank you. And we just want to let you know, too, that we have a table in the fellowship hall. We would love to talk with any of you, just if you have any questions about the Philippines or what God is doing in Asia. And we have prayer cards there. We'd love for you to take one, put it on your refrigerator, in your Bible, and you can pray for us. We also have slips of paper that you can give us your email address or mailing address if you'd like to receive our newsletter to keep up to date with what's going on with us. And if you would like more information about possibly partnering with us financially or prayerfully, we'd really love to talk with you more about that. And there's also a list of the needs that Faith Academy has. So maybe you might be called to the Philippines as a teacher at Faith Academy or another support staff, or possibly you know somebody who's looking for what they're going to do next year. Maybe God is just waiting for them to take that step. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's good to have them with us. We have a couple of minutes. I just wanted to ask, are there any questions anybody has that would like to throw out here that you didn't hear this morning? Anybody? Great question. How many? Go ahead. What
No.
language is it done in?
No, the Philippines is a language of Tagalog. It did have some rule over that Spain had ruled them for a number of years, so there are a few Spanish words mixed in to the language, but it's not completely all Spanish. But Tagalog is the main language of the Philippines, and then the central region does have a little bit different dialect called, what's it called? Cebuano. But it's similar. Just
There's lots, and
and there's probably more.
there's hundreds of different dialects. But Tagalog is the most widely spoken language. But actually, English is the most spoken in Manila, so we have not fully learned the language there. We know a little bit. It's very easy to get around the Philippines, especially in Manila, with just English. Not all Asian countries are like that. Philippines is probably one of the most widely English spoken.
You didn't pick up Tagalog growing there?
He knows.
Unfortunately,
more.
not enough, because I went to Faith Academy, which is an American curriculum. And so if you're not really in the culture fully, it's a lot harder to learn language. So I do know some, but magandang umaga.
There you go. There you go.
Baha.
Oh, yes.
Oh, praise God. Diyos is God, but I don't know how to say praise God. Good morning is magandang umaga. So,
Kumusta is how are you?
Which is
We
similar
say
to Spanish.
Mabuti. Good.
Yeah.
Ikaw. And you.
Salamat po.
Maraming salamat po.
Salamat po is for someone with respect, right?
Is the
Yes.
respect term. Yeah.
Lois and I were actually there for 6 months during our seminar. We had a short-term seminary time there. Actually, kind of disappointed when we came back because I finally learned mahal was dear, too dear.
Yeah.
You know, and I was getting into this bargaining kind of thing, and I just all went away, kind of thing. But it was the roads were very busy when we were there. That was 30 years ago, so I can't imagine what it's like that, the jeepneys and everything out through there. How many children or youth did you say you had in your home at one time?
It's normally 15 to 17.
How many would you like to 15 to 17 teenage girls in your home to raise? Multiply your gang by about 7 there, Pepe, and you'd be all set. So their missionaries are from all different places, and these missionaries would not be able to do what they're doing without that. Maybe one of you could give a little bit of background on Mindanao and some of the challenges. I'll just give a background a little bit. They're from World Venture. They're with World Venture, and World Venture is a priority for us as far as whom we take on as support. World Venture originally, many years ago, was called Conservative Baptist Foreign Mission Society, and we're Conservative Baptist Association. So they've changed their name, but their doctrinal statement is the exact same as ours. So we don't have to worry when we're bringing in missionaries from there, because we know they believe what we believe, and they have the same basics and background, and so that they're really a sister mission agency for us. And so when we were there, we were under ourselves under the old CBFMS. We were called MAC missionaries back then, Missionary Assistance Corps. But I'll let one of you give the background on Mindanao and some of the challenges they have down there, and then maybe the other one could give a little bit of the idea of the Philippines history, because a lot of people, missed their history course, like what some of us did in that course. Why are the Americans so involved there, and how does that tie into what's going on there? So I'm not sure which one of you wants to take which question.
Which one?
The history.
Well, I mean, as far as Mindanao, I know it's just heavily populated with the Muslims. So there's a lot of work needed there for the Muslims to just turn to Jesus Christ for their salvation. So there can be some unrest there with the Muslims as they move about and as they expand, not only in the Philippines but all over the world. And I know Bill Simons, as we had talked about, Bill's firstborn son, Russ, is also with World Venture, and so he does many things in his ministry, but one of the things is working with Muslims and bringing them to Christ.
Let's see, the history of the Philippines. The Philippines has gone through a lot. As Jay had mentioned, they were ruled by Spain for many years. I believe it was in 1897, I think, that they won their freedom from Spain. But then at that time is when they were kind of controlled by the U.S. for quite a while. And depending on who you talk to, that was a good thing, and other people say that was a bad thing. So, but Philippines has a very high Catholic population because of the Spanish rule for a long time. And then when the Americans came in, they also were able to help with a lot of education. They brought teachers to the Philippines and things like that, which really helped the Filipino people. It is still a third world country, and there's still a lot of struggles. There's a lot of corruption that goes on in the government and things like that. And then even during World War II, there was a lot that went on in the Philippines. The Japanese came in and caused a lot of problems. A lot of Filipinos have a lot of negative attitudes towards the Japanese still to this day. If you've heard of a place like Corregidor or Bataan, things like that, Bataan Death March happened there during World War II. So then after World War II, Philippines was kind of given their freedom again. And the U.S. really has helped the Philippines structure their government to be kind of similar to ours here. I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, so try to think of anything else. You probably know more than I.
Your great uncle Bill Simons, he was actually stationed in Subic Bay, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was when he was a Navy chaplain. He was stationed at Subic Bay there, and Lois and I had a chance to go to Subic Bay. We actually they took us to Corregidor, and they showed us. Go ahead.
I was going to say too that so there was military presence at Subic Bay, which is a naval base, and then there was military presence at Clark Air Force Base, which is really pretty close to there. But after a volcano that erupted in like the mid-90s, maybe 94, the government kicked the U.S. out, and I don't really know all the reasons of why that happened, but they've kind of said we don't want the U.S. help anymore, even though every now and then when they have trouble, they still call on the U.S. So those two bases still exist, but not as U.S. bases anymore. And my older brother, Stephen, I don't know if you remember him, he and his wife actually work at an international school in Subic. There is a Brent International School of Subic that is run there, and he's an administrator there. So there's still a lot that goes on there. A lot of businesses are run there. There's small airports and things like that, just not U.S. military anymore. So.
Do you have any idea how many missionaries World Venture has in the Philippines?
Yes, in the Philippines, there's not quite 30, I would say. Maybe
Say just a little
20,
bit under 25, 30.
yeah, missionaries in the Philippines right now.
What's some of the ministries they do?
Yeah, we definitely have church planters, and the Philippines is really becoming more of a reached area, except for, like Jay mentioned, Mindanao, where the Muslims are. But so a lot of our pastors who have been in the Philippines now for many years are starting to train Philippine pastors, and that's really should be the goal of all missionaries who go into new countries, is to help the nationals take over, and because they really can reach their own people a lot better. So we have some missionaries in the central region who are doing lots of pastoral training, and then there are missionaries down in the south who are doing Muslim work and other training. There's a single woman who's doing some training with like seminary type training there. And then we do have a group at Faith Academy. There's us and a couple other families who are teachers and staff. And then there's some in Manila who are, another pastor. So it's mostly pastoral type missions work there in the Philippines. You mean?
I was asking about when we were there. There was Pistonung Mapuri. We actually had 200 churches there. When we were there, there was a big celebration. Now I'm not sure how many churches we have in the Philippines, but the Philippines has matured as a theater. So now the kind of missionaries we're sending there are actually developmental missionaries, some church planters, but they're actually training them because the Philippines has now become a sending nation, and they're sending their own people that have come to know Jesus Christ as missionaries across the world. And they actually, their mission organization is called CB Global. And so as kind of like CB America is CB Global, and they have a global mission going over. And the Philippines, many of those people in the Philippines, they're actually expatriate workers in many other countries. For instance, when I was in the Philippines, when I was in Kuwait and some of those places, many of the people that are there are from the Philippines and India and all these other places as workers. And so when they come to Christ in the Philippines, they can actually wind up being in Saudi Arabia or some other nation that's a Muslim nation, actually doing work. And so the testimony of Jesus Christ goes through there. So, anything else that you think of that might be interesting? Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I say one thing? With the other Asian countries as well, I don't know if you know that Korea is now, from most things that we read, Korea is now the highest sending nation for missionaries, even over U.S. So we do have, majority of our students at Faith Academy are Korean. We have, I think, 40%, and our first year or second year there was the first year that Koreans surpassed the number of Americans that we have. And even in our boarding home, we've had many Koreans. So it's really exciting to see how God is working in the South Korean church. And many of those missionaries, too, are hoping to reach North Korea, if you know a little bit about the problems going on there. So that's something that we pray about a lot. We're excited for our girls who are, especially the ones who are Korean. I pray for them often that God would call them to be missionaries. And most of them do have a heart for that. And it's exciting to see how God may use them. So